Recording in progress by the one and only Paula. Paula, how are you doing today?
Thank you so much for joining us this morning, and welcome to our special guests and everyone else that is here to participate in the information session on the Miami market. We're really excited this year as the Center for Women in Business to lead this mission in September, and especially excited that this year we are going to be in person. And although virtual has certainly been a friend to us all, I think building those relationships in person is so important. And so really looking forward to being able to be in the market and to see kind of what's going on in that area. And that's what we're going to cover today is Miami as a gateway to Latin America and the Caribbean. And I'm just going to very briefly, just a quick overview of our agenda this morning. We're going to have the Canadian Trade Commissioner Service in Miami speak. Enterprise Florida will talk about the market as well. A private sector testimonial from Surrett Battery on the work that they have done out of there, and then an opportunity for a roundtable discussion where we're going to dig a little bit deeper into some of the probing questions I know that you all have. And question and answer, of course. So I would encourage you, if you want to introduce yourself, the chat is there. And if you have any questions that you'd like to pose, we'll be monitoring that and making sure that those are answered. And if you just wouldn't mind keeping yourselves on mute for the presentations, that would be very helpful as well. So a big thanks, of course, to the Atlantic Canada Opportunities Agency for supporting this mission, and also working collaboratively with our matchmakers, Beyond Ventures and MNC Latin Consulting. So really a great team that we have here to be able to support you in looking at or in expanding your market to the Miami area. And I'm going to now introduce Craig Williams from the Atlantic Canada Opportunities Agency, and he's going to kick off the morning session. Craig.
Thank you so much. Greatly appreciate it, Tanya, and welcome everybody. This is, as Tanya said, this is exciting. This is an exciting event. You know, much of the world is going back to market, and we are too, to be out there competing and looking for new business. So we're very much excited about that. A little bit of overview on this. Tanya hit many of the points, and I'll kind of just hit a couple of others just as a reminder. Well, first of all, we're really fortunate to be able to have Tanya and her team leading this. The Center for Women in Business has been leading a mission to Jamaica for about, I think this might be the sixth or seventh year, and they're becoming experts in the Jamaican market. Some of the way that we approach this is that we realize it's a huge expense for the public purse to finance this missions like this. We also realize that it's a big investment on behalf of your companies and on behalf of your time. So in an attempt to optimize your investments, we try to put more than one market because many of the markets in the Caribbean are small. So we try to bookend a mission where we combine two markets. You can go to both, or you can go to one or the other. It's entirely up to you. And that's what this is. This particular mission is the Jamaica Miami mission. And the Miami end of this is really interesting. It has a specific purpose. Miami as a gateway to the Caribbean and Latin America. Miami has a very large community and is an epicenter for trade for and many of the countries and companies throughout the Caribbean and Latin America, when they have needs for purchases, they look to Miami. And Miami has a large economy and community of wholesalers, distributors, and retail and agents. And it's a great strategy for small businesses, small to medium-sized businesses, as opposed to having a market strategy for each one of those 40 jurisdictions to be able to go to a wholesaler or a distributor. And then it becomes somebody else's responsibility. A lot of those nuances and and barriers and challenges to getting into individual markets becomes the somebody else's responsibility. So it can be a great strategy for different types of companies, and that's where we're coming from on this particular segment of the mission. It is a multi-sector mission, so it's broad. We are looking for companies that are certainly willing to commit to a market for a longer period of time. It's not just a one-off. It is not gender specific, while it is for the Center for Women in Business, and we are looking at getting more women exporters, women-owned businesses. This is open to both genders, and it's pan-Atlantic. We are looking for companies from throughout Atlantic Canada, so we're excited about that. Well, again, my name is Craig Williams, and I work with the trade unit at ACOA Nova Scotia. We're a small group, and most of my work focuses in the Caribbean basin. So if you have any questions after this, please feel free to reach out to me at any time, and I will more than happy make myself accessible to you and what your aspirations and plans are for your business in the Caribbean. First of all, it's my privilege to be able to introduce our representatives from the Consul General in Miami. We've been working with their team there for quite a bit, and we are constantly impressed with the feedback we get from our delegates on the caliber of professionalism and the attentiveness that they give to our delegates. The Senior Trade Commissioner there is Jean-Pierre Hamel, as well as his other trade commissioner there. The two JPs is Juan Pablo Gonzalez. Jean-Pierre Hamel currently serves as the Consul Senior Trade Commissioner at the Consul General of Canada in Miami. He's responsible for overseeing Canada's commercial activities in Florida, Puerto Rico, and the U.S. Virgin Islands. I found it very interesting. I learned a lot of things about Jean-Pierre when I was reading this. I knew that he had experience in working in other posts around the world, in Europe, Latin America, the Caribbean and Africa, the Middle East, and now in Miami, also in Mexico. But also I met him originally in Havana, Cuba. He was the Senior Trade Commissioner there. But I thought it was very interesting that he's a graduate of law from the University of Ottawa, and also is fluent in English, French, Spanish, and a working knowledge in German and Hebrew. I thought that was incredibly interesting. Certainly, we're very interested to listen to his input, as well as Juan Pablo Gonzalez, the other JP, part of the team from Miami. He's a senior international business development assistant, and he covers the reactive sectors in the Trade Commissioner Service in Miami's. He also has served as the acting trade commissioner, where he is responsible for the Gateway initiative in Latin America. So that was kind of purely what we're talking about trying to accomplish here. So he is a great resource on the principle of what we're trying to accomplish for our companies by coming to Miami. Previously worked for the Greater Miami Chamber of Commerce, where he was responsible for organizing outbound trade missions to Latin America, the Caribbean, Europe, and Asia. So without further delay, and I always kind of cringe a little bit when people talk about me too much, so I will stop now and pass the baton over to our colleagues to give us a profile on Miami, and Miami as a gateway to the Caribbean and Latin America.
Great, thank you so much, Craig, and pleasure to be with you today. Special thank you to ACOA, Center for Women in Business, Enterprise Florida, great partners, Surrey Batteries that we work with, including in part of the other territory that we're covering, which is Puerto Rico. And as Craig mentioned, I'm accompanied by Juan Gonzalez from my office here in Miami. So we'll be sharing a bit of the floor today. Just to moving on to the first slide, I just wanted to make sure that you knew who we are, the Canadian Trade Commissioner Service. So that's a federal agency, 125 years of history, basically supporting Canadian SMEs. We serve about 10,000 clients every year, mostly exporters, but also people that wish to invest in Canada. We have about 160 offices around the world, 14 of them in the US. And of course, we have also offices in Canada covering all of the provinces and the territory. So just moving on quickly to the next slide, a little bit of what we do. Basically, in a very simple, sentence, we support Canadian exporters. So we help you gain market insight. We help find opportunities. For example, if we hear of a particular contract or a local company that needs particular goods or services, and then we connect you with these potential clients. And finally, an area that we don't wish to get you there, but sometimes there's some business problems that need to be solved, and we try to provide some services there to help you solve these problems. So again, moving along, as Craig mentioned, we're in Miami, but we're covering the whole state of Florida, which is the fourth largest in the US, or in terms of GDP anyway. A large population, third in the US. And we know that a number of Atlantic Canada companies are already doing business or are familiar with the territory. And there's at least 600 million Canadian dollars exported from Atlantic Canada every year to our territory, Florida. Obviously, some fish and agri-food and lumber, paper products often come from Atlantic Canada. A little anecdote that we found while doing representation on some market access issues is that about 30% of Florida's strawberry culture actually use seedlings or plants coming from Nova Scotia. So we buy the seedlings, and then they're grown here and oftentimes exported back to Canada. You are all probably very familiar with a company like Emera, who has a strong presence in Florida as in the Caribbean. And they own the Tampa electricity company here, TECO, among other things. But the reason we're here today, because of the interest on the Caribbean market, is really to try to explain the role of Florida, but South Florida in particular, as a gateway to Latin America and the Caribbean. And for those who have visited South Florida, you will see that this is a very Latin American environment. There was an interesting article last week in The Economist, basically saying that if South America has a capital, it is Miami. And I invite you to read it if you have not seen it. So this being said, I just wanted to also very quickly touch upon the other territory that we're covering, because it is the Caribbean, and that's Puerto Rico, and which is Craig and I were talking about Puerto Rico a couple of weeks ago, and what I said is that you either consider Puerto Rico as a poorer U.S. state or as a very rich Caribbean country, and that's been my perception. So there's business to be done there. There's a lot of federal funding from Washington coming in terms of reconstruction. They've been hit by a number of hurricanes in recent years. We have a significant Canadian interest there. So this is something that, down the road, we should be exploring together. But because the theme today is the gateway to Latin America and the Caribbean, I will ask my colleague Juan to perhaps cover that. It's a bit of a complex issue, but a very interesting one. But just to summarize, one thing is that when I first arrived in Miami 3 years ago, someone said, the beautiful thing about South Florida is that it's so close to the United States. So Juan, please lead us through the gateway. And I believe that Issam also has very good background information on that later on.
Thank you, Jean-Pierre, and good morning, everyone. This is Juan Gonzalez again. So we're really quick on the gateway. As Jean-Pierre was alluding, South Florida is really well positioned to the rest of the hemisphere, geographically, obviously, as the southernmost point in the US, but also as a logistical hub to the region with some of the busiest seaports and airports doing both cargo and passenger trade with the region. It also has a large presence of multinational companies in the state of Florida, and some of them include multi-Latinas, which are companies headquartered in Latin America with offices in Miami. All these logistical advantages that Florida offers in turn produce a lot of trade between the two regions, between Latin America, the Caribbean, and Florida, with approximately $100 billion of goods both being imported and exported to and from Latin America to Florida. Another example of how relevant the region is to Florida is that almost 1/3 of all goods exported to Latin America from the US, it's basically done through the state of Florida. And seeing all these advantages that the region offers, that's the main reason we have kind of developed this strategy to help Canadian companies tap into these opportunities, take advantage of South Florida as a hub, and pretty much help the Canadians export to this market, which, as we were talking earlier, it's there for the grabs. And with that, I'm going to let my colleague later on, Hassam from Enterprise Florida, go into detail about why he's selling Florida. So next slide, please. Really quick, this is our team here. We cover Florida, Puerto Rico, and the US Virgin Islands. You already met Jean-Pierre, the head of the program. We also have my colleague, Margaret Cullen, who focuses on clean technologies and infrastructure. We have Jimena Povich Machado, who focuses on defense and life sciences. And then Matthew Waldron, who covers ICT, information communications technology. And of course, myself, I do the gateway portion and reactive sectors, which basically means any other sector that falls outside the scope of our priorities. Over to you, Jean-Pierre, and next slide, please.
Yeah, so very quickly, it's actually JP that put this list together. It's a list of events that we're attending or organizing or participating in most years. So I won't go through the list, but it's just to see the number of events that are relevant to the region, oftentimes the Caribbean and Latin America, but certainly for Florida as well. And obviously, ACOA knows a CREF very well, the Caribbean Renewable Energy Forum that takes place every year. The challenge we're having right now is that many of these shows or events have been either postponed or canceled in the last 2 years, and now everybody wants to put them on in 6 months. So we've been going through a number of those in the last couple of months, but nevertheless, just to show that there's enough material here for Canadian companies to certainly identify great leads, either in Florida, in the Caribbean, and sometimes in Latin America. So I believe that's what we had to say today. So don't hesitate to contact us in Miami, and we'd be pleased to look at what we can do for you. Over to you, Craig.
Thank you, gentlemen. We greatly appreciate that. We will circulate in a follow-up email the presentation to everybody. As well as if we can track down that link on The Economist, we'll include that as well. That sounds really, I'm going to look up that article. That sounds really interesting. Thanks for that. Next, we're going to, there's something else too. Did I write it down? I didn't. A lot of great points. The next, we have Dr. Hassam Horia-Band is going to speak to us actually from Toronto. Enterprise Florida, he works with Enterprise Florida. However, he has the privilege of working out of their their Toronto office. Hassam has extensive and richly varied background in international, political, and diplomatic affairs, as well as public relations, marketing, and customer service, and has worked in many multicultural environments in which he does it with great ease. His extensive work in public relations and consulting positions have made him into a strong communicator and has knowledge and experience of the diplomatic environment. He has helped, which has helped him to become familiar with international diplomatic norms, protocols, and procedures. I've had several conversations with Hassam, and it's a pleasure to talk to, very easy and willing to be of assistance. And I would encourage anyone, if they think that the Enterprise Florida might be of assistance to them in their energies, to reach out to Hassam as well. And I'll let him talk about Enterprise Florida and about the region in general. So I'm going to pass over to Hassam. Both Hassam, Jean-Pierre, and Juan Pablo are going to be sitting in on a kind of conversational discussion shortly. So if you have questions, we can address them then. Hassam.
Thank you so much, Craig. Thank you. It's always a pleasure to be on these trade missions, webinars with ACOA, Beyond Venture, CWB, and working with my great colleagues, Jean-Pierre and Juan Pablo out of the consulate in Miami. So as Craig mentioned, I am the director of Enterprise Florida's offices here in Canada. We have two offices, one in Toronto, where I'm based out of, and another one in Montreal. Essentially, what Enterprise Florida does is and I'm just going to share my screen so that we basically represent the state of Florida's trade and investment agency. And we work with international companies looking to move down to Florida, invest in Florida, trade with Floridian partners. I don't know if you can see the slides. Okay. Perfect. So we, again, it's a public-private partnership between the state of Florida and some key participants in the state. We have about 20 offices around the world where we work with our companies within our jurisdiction to provide them with incentives, logistical support, making sure that they're embedded in the local network in Florida. As Jean-Pierre and Juan Pablo was saying, this is, there's a reason we're doing this trade mission. The investment and trade relationship between Canada and Florida is strong, and even during the pandemic, we saw that trade between the two jurisdictions flourish. Obviously, at a lesser pace, but nevertheless. So, just for the sake of this virtual trade mission and today's topics, I will be skipping some of the slides. Nevertheless, they'll be shared with you afterwards. What I wanted to focus on is, first of all, the state of affairs in Florida in terms of economy. So it is, as it was mentioned, it is the fourth largest economy in the U.S. In terms of GDP. There is a great number of Canadian companies that are already operating in Florida, about 500. And in terms of population as well, it is the third largest populous state. Now, it is also a rich and varied ecosystem in Florida. We do have several sort of industry sectors that we focus on, mainly, obviously, agriculture, automotive, aerospace, as well as life sciences, defense, etc. So again, there's a reason that a lot of the companies that are doing business with Latin America and the Caribbean are based in Miami. So somewhere between about 60% of the companies that are in Miami are there mainly to work with Latin America because of the proximity to the market, because of the availability of bilingual English, Spanish talent. And again, for example, for a Canadian company, it makes more sense to be in a place like Miami, sending products to the Latin American and Caribbean rather than sending it directly from Canada, because then again, you want to cut down costs of transportation. So one important aspect of Florida is that we have about 12 to 13 deep water ports. There are about 10 or so free trade zones in and around the state. Now, these free trade zones make it much easier for example, an international company like a Canadian company that wants to depot their products, do light assembly at these free foreign trade zones, and then ship them to a third country in Latin America and Caribbean. The good thing with these foreign trade zones is that if your products are based there, if you import them per se from Canada to these free trade zones, you don't go through the US customs process. So it just makes it easier for you to depot, as I mentioned, your products in these free foreign trade zones and then ship them to other regions without having to pay customs and duties. If you were looking at importing these products directly into the US from these foreign trade zones, it also makes it easier. But nevertheless, they're there to help you and help companies make sure that they can tap into the local talent and also take advantage of the logistics and distribution facilities that are around Florida. So again, just in terms of some of the Canadian companies that are already present in Florida, as you can see, some of the big names. And again, we're proud of the amount of trade between the two jurisdictions that I mentioned. Canada is our biggest trade partner. A lot of Florida origin exports are actually going to Canada. And as you can see, in terms of some of the biggest provinces in Canada and number of goods that's sent back and forth, it's astonishing. Again, as I mentioned, 500 Canadian-owned businesses already doing work in Florida, and we're happy that about 55,000, 60,000 jobs in Florida is due to the fact that these Canadian companies are there. Some of the, for example, Bombardier is just finishing up a service center in southern Miami. Tim Hortons has just announced its recent expansion to Florida, along with some of the smaller companies. So again, with regards to the products that are mainly sent back and forth between Florida and Canada, as you can see here, I think there was a slide that alluded to the vegetables. There's a lot of aircraft parts, components, composites being sent back and forth between Florida and Canada, as well as anything that has to do with petrochemicals, plastics, etc. Now, what I wanted to discuss also, that's just in short, is some of the incentives and support programs that are in place at the behest of the state of Florida and Enterprise Florida, offered to companies from international jurisdictions. So the first and foremost is we basically act as an extension of your team. So if a company is looking to find a site in Florida, and by all means, these are all free services that's provided by the state. If a company is looking for a site, if a company is looking to hire folks, if a company is looking to get introductions and meet relevant partners in terms of centers of excellence, universities, etc., that's why Enterprise Florida is there. And on top of that, there's several incentives that are offered by the state of Florida. First and foremost, the QTI, which is basically a workers placement incentive. So for every full-time employee that a company hires in Florida, the company is eligible to get back about $3,000 to $6,000 per head count. If as a first-time business you're operating in Florida, if it's a manufacturing facility, if it's any type of work that you're doing in terms of training your workforce, the state of Florida does provide you back those sales tax exemptions and credits. Another important incentive and grant that's provided is the R&D tax credit, which is provided by the state of Florida. It usually goes about up to about $16 million. So if a company is looking to do any type of R&D work in the state of Florida, either in tandem with a partner or solely by themselves, they're eligible to take advantage of that R&D credit. Just as long as that project takes place in Florida, we basically sit down, study the scope of the project, the length of project, etc., and then you can tap into that fund. There's other incentives. Once you become a Florida company, there's trade and export assistance that we also provide. So when a Canadian company actually has an entity in Florida, then that entity becomes a Floridian company, where we provide, for example, participation in trade shows, export assistance, etc. So by all means, I'm more than happy to address any questions. If there's any assistance needed for our Canadian companies looking to go down to Florida, we'll be more than happy to assist you along the way. My contact details are there. Again, the slides will be shared with everyone. So please feel free to send me an email or give me a call. And again, it's a win-win for both of us. And that's why we have a great working relationship with the Canadian Trade Commissioner Services in Miami as well. And we look forward to helping you as well. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Sam. That was awesome. Key line there, I think, was extension of your team. So that was awesome. And when you're apparently now, when you're doing business in Florida, you can get your Tim Hortons coffee there as well. So so that's an interesting piece of information. A ton of really valuable insights there. A lot of things that I was unaware of. Greatly appreciate that, and I look forward to the opportunity for our delegates to be able to reach out to you. Thank you for your time. If people could, as you're getting questions are popping into your head and you're listening and you're thinking, how does this work? You can put them in the chat, and when we get to the questions and answers, we'll try to ask them. Otherwise, if I understand Hassan might have to leave early, we can circulate them in the follow-up email after this event. So very good. Now, to drive home the value of what we're talking about, or the impetus for this mission about using or seeing Miami or South Florida as a launching point for your foray into the Caribbean or Latin America, we do have companies that do this now. And one in particular is Surrett Battery. On the line, we have Jeff Miles, who's the marketing manager, and he's going to talk to us a little bit. Jeff Miles works with Surrett Battery Company and is the marketing manager. In addition to his marketing role, facilities, technical support, and training, and support of the full range of Rolls battery brand products. Surrett Battery Company is located in Spring Hill, Nova Scotia, and is one of North America's leading lead-acid battery manufacturers and is Canada's only independent battery manufacturer used for railroads, marine, motive, and renewable energy applications. The Surrett Group, as well as Jeff, participates in many of our Caribbean missions. And I believe their companies and reps have opened great new markets in the Caribbean. So we look forward to hearing from them and learning from their experience. Jeff?
Hey, thanks, Craig. So yeah, I just want to give you a little brief introduction for those of you that are not familiar with our company. We manufacture deep cycle lead acid batteries that are used in a variety of different applications. Some of the most common applications that would be used in the Caribbean would be in motive power, such as golf carts and industrial equipment, forklifts, and things like that. We also do marine batteries that are used from everything from recreation to commercial marine size applications. And one of the biggest industries that's growing, obviously, in the Caribbean is the renewable energy industry. So working with a distributor in Miami has been key in being able to provide access to our product. One of the biggest barriers for many of the island communities is simply the cost of getting the product to them and for the consumers to be able to buy it. So for us, getting the exposure and getting the products to the dealer level in these communities is kind of vital to expanding our distribution network. And we work with a distributor in Miami, DC Battery Specialist, that we've been working with since the early 80s to provide marine batteries and industrial batteries. And now a lot of their focus is on supplying to the renewable energy distributors, dealers, and installers who are doing battery backup systems for, redundancy systems in island communities that are often hard hit with storms, but also for residential customers that are looking to do off-grid applications as well as commercial size applications. So one of the keys, and Hassem had mentioned, was using Miami as kind of a hub in reducing transportation costs. So we're manufacturing lead acid batteries. They're very heavy, and the batteries are generally shipped by the full container load. And our distributor in Miami is one of the largest distributors we work with worldwide. They're bringing in a very high volume of product, but they're also able to warehouse product for a lot of the opportunities where in a island community, they may have a government grant or some type of project that's requiring kind of a smaller quantity of batteries. They can source those at the pallet load level, and the distributor in Miami is very well versed in being able to logistically get the product to that dealer level, which has been very important. From our perspective, we're still a relatively small company, and simply shipping out direct to the island communities would not be feasible, and it would certainly not be cost advantageous to the customer to ship direct from Nova Scotia. So by using the distributor in Miami, a lot of those companies are able to get the product at a more affordable price, and they also have access to a wider range of products. So the distributors generally, for the most part, know how logistically to get the product there. In some cases, they may have a network of different dealers or installers that are purchasing the product, and they'll try to combine orders to save them some money. And that's all done because of their experience, which has been really great. We often participate in these trade missions to try to expand our distribution network to meet with companies in certain areas that are looking for products that we can serve. And by kind of facilitating their orders through the distributor in Miami, a lot of them are able to actually get those products at a very affordable price and then grow their business and then eventually start to warehouse the product locally. So that's kind of the goal of doing these trade missions for us, is to get the products into those island communities and to provide better access and more exposure to our brand. So I think that's kind of sums up our focus on participation, and hopefully that kind of give you some background.
It's a great background. Really appreciate it. As you're speaking, and Jeff, I know, is a pretty accomplished international sales and marketing agent on behalf of his company or account manager. And when I'm, putting myself in the delegate's shoes in this, I'm thinking, the motivation for people to go through having a distributor, does that override everything for you guys in terms of having to worry about, translation, in documentation, dealing with customs, currency? All that is handled by your distributor in Miami.
Yeah, and that's actually one of the other great things in having this long-term partnership. Our distributors actually help us in the sales process, but they'll also help us in supporting the product. So a lot of times, if we don't have Spanish-speaking staff or technical support, they'll handle those for us. And they have staff, obviously, they're in Miami, so they certainly would, which is great. They also help us with the development of our marketing materials and support documents in Spanish, which is great. And they also will kind of field those requests and then oftentimes try to, answer those questions proactively. So they've kind of been an arm of our technical support, which has been fantastic. Another big thing is we're manufacturing a product that, if it's not used properly, oftentimes needs to be replaced. And so they help us to facilitate, warranties and goodwills and things like that at the smaller dealer or installer level. Specifically in renewable applications, it's very common for, maybe a customer to try to do it yourself job and, not necessarily get the results that we're looking for. They're able to actually kind of facilitate the replacements and get the product there a lot more quickly than shipping it direct from here.
Wow, that's awesome. Really great information. Jeff, really appreciate your time for being here with us today. Thank you very much. The next portion, and we always have to be very cognizant of the time and our commitment to you and how much time we've committed to for this session to take. We're fortunate to be able to still have the attention of the Trade Commissioner Service out of Miami, as well as Sam and the Enterprise Florida. And we have some questions that we'd like to just go down through that we kind of thought would give us a little deeper understanding and give them the opportunity to talk a little bit, maybe off script, about what makes Miami to be a great hub and potential option for your strategy for the Caribbean and Latin America. So just kind of starting, so we have Juan Pablo and Jean-Pierre and Hassam that is going to be sitting in on this table, this round table, if you will. Imagine it. So just from a very high level, you want to tell us just like, what is the current state of the economy? We know that Hassam did a very good overview, and as well as Jean-Pierre talked about, the industries and the ties between Canada. But we've just come from, a bit of a global downturn as a result of COVID. While there's a history of activity and in Florida, how is the economy trending, coming out of this? And I'll just say, it appears that Hassam had to leave early, and he gave his apologies. So I'll pass this over to Juan Pablo and Jean-Pierre as to how the economy is trending now in Florida.
Good. Well, I'll quickly say that we've gone through a strange 2 years of COVID here, where a lot of people from The northern part of the US, New York and California, have moved down, relocated to Florida. So that has created economically a lot of good things, but including driving the price of real estate at some probably unsustainable level. But that's a problem we seem to have at some measure in Canada as well. So economically, with tourism now being in full boom, cruise, including cruise tourism that has that is back in business, the economy is very strong. So this is very encouraging. And JP, I don't know if you have comment on as far as Latin Americans coming back to South Florida as well.
Sure, and coincidentally, there's a big election coming up in a couple of weeks, and the article that Jean-Pierre was quoting earlier kind of alluded to this. Latin Americans, for the most part, see South Florida as a safe haven, if you will. So anything that happens in Latin America that could affect, I guess, their well-being will drive them to come to Miami, like they have done over the past few decades. Venezuelans did at some point, continue to do so. So the next wave, depending on the outcome of the elections, and I'm talking in this case of particularly of Colombia, it's a wave of people from the region to Miami. They own apartments here. They own businesses here. Some of them live, 3/4 of the time in Latin America. They come on vacation here. So depending on the political situation, we might see how these numbers continue to increase to South Florida. So that's something that we're definitely keeping an eye on. So that's basically quickly, definitely the numbers will continue to increase. We don't expect a decline of reverse migration back to Latin America. We don't foresee that happening anytime soon.
That's really interesting. There's two influences here that you both highlighted. The North, all of those people that have been locked in their homes for the last 2 years, saying, life is short. What are we going to do? Like they're flocking to Halifax now as well, from central Canada, or have been, and real estate's going crazy. So similarly, and I say that a little bit of tongue in cheek, but we have seen migration from central Canada. So there's internal from the United States, but also from the rest of Latin America. And the way that you define that kind of, and I know, from my few trips to, there's a huge Cuban population, and they came in one wave, I assume, Juan Pablo. You're saying there was a Venezuelan, during economic upheaval in Cuba, Venezuela, and potentially Colombia. So yeah, interesting. And so those pressures are seeing influxes and increases demands on residential housing and multi-unit housing as well. So that's really interesting. So that therefore all of the feeder industries, that supply chains that go into construction and are going to be affected. There are great demands. And prior to COVID, I know that construction was booming in Florida, looking for engineering companies, supplies, that type of thing. Very interesting. Thank you very much for that. So then, one of the things that we said, what are the factors that the city is the epicenter of economic activity for jurisdictions in Latin America and Caribbean? You mentioned stability. You mentioned, that it's the economy. Is there other things that are influences that make Miami and or South Florida to be the epicenter above and beyond those factors?
I was about to say the geography, of course. Part of the interest of being in South Florida is the connectivity with the whole of the hemisphere. That's probably the only place where you can have a direct flight to anywhere in Latin America or in the Caribbean. But JP may have some other idea. I just have to step out for 1 minute. There's someone knocking at the door, and I'll be back in a flash while JP complete the question.
So related to all the migration that has happened throughout the years, obviously now there's a cultural affinity with the region. Some people, even though they were born somewhere else, feel like they are from Miami, but they still carry all that heritage. So there's cultural affinity with the region. Obviously, related to this, there's language. And with that language, obviously, the opportunities for any business trying to look into the region are great, because you can find all sorts of consultants that live in the region, or have experience working in the region, that know the language, that can offer legal advice, financial advice, even political advice and political risk. So these are assets that are within their territory, and obviously you as a Canadian company looking to expand your business development into the region. Obviously you want to check all the boxes and make sure that you're aware of potential instability or potential opportunities by the same token that all these experts can give you an update on.
And I would assume, and you've talked about it in both presentations, Jean-Pierre talked about flights, but also it being the shipping hub. That's got to be another area that, direct shipping from Canada. We know that, there's
and specifically from Atlantic Canada, and Halifax has a direct route that goes to San Juan, Puerto Rico, for example, that makes a quick stop in a Florida port. So even from that point of view, you could still have inventory in Florida, and then send it to Puerto Rico to be further distributed in the region. So those are things that that makes thank you, Arturo. He's mentioning tropical shipping, which is a well-established company that has done this for years.
So it seems like your team is dwindling there, and so I'm going to put you on the spot actually. But you're the right person for this question, though. What kind of we had Jeff on talking about Surrett Batteries experience. What in your experience, working at the Consul General in Miami, and having worked on the Gateway Initiative, are the typical types of companies or industries from Canada that use this kind of wholesaler, distributor, agent network in Miami? Can you think of what are some of the common sectors or types of businesses or businesses that have seen great success?
Sure, and obviously a company like Jeff's company, which has technology that is not available elsewhere, and
Juan Pablo is frozen for me. Okay.
Same here.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we had one person that had, so anyway, do we have questions? There are some questions, and I think Paula, you kind of suggested that there are some questions in the chat box.
I'm not so sure about the chat box, but for the Q&A, we're got another 5 minutes left. Wondering if folks in general have questions. If they do, can they unmute themselves and turn on their video? And we will try as best we can to give you answers with our experience.
So if you have a question, if you want to articulate it there now, and if Juan Pablo or Jean-Pierre come back in, we'll ask them to jump in. Otherwise, we can utilize some of the experience that's on the line right now between Paula and Arturo, myself and Tanya, or otherwise we can record these and see that they get answered after the session.
Yeah, I'd like to mention, Greg, in terms of your question, and it's just anecdotal in terms of what sectors have been successful. I think that Nova Scotia has not only a strong but growing food and beverage sector that in the past have been very involved, particularly with seafood and high-end value products that might be distributed in the tourism industry. And that is one that I have done a little bit of work in the seafood trade shows of the Americas, sorry, the food and beverage trade show of the Americas in Miami. And I think that Miami, being an epicenter for not only re-exporting or consolidating, but also for the AC access to the Fort Lauderdale cruise industry, that sector might be of interest for some of our companies, I think.
So that is huge, and that's a great point. I don't know if that was highlighted in any of the presentations about the cruise ship industry. It was, if you've been in South Florida, Fort Lauderdale, and I know in Miami, you're there and you can see, the lines of ships downtown that are coming and going constantly. So a lot of their purchasing happens out of South Florida. So they're supplying those ships on a regular basis. So it's, they're looking for the types of things that Arturo might be referencing, like maybe fish or blueberries or alcohol, those types of things. So that might be a really interesting fit for producers in Atlantic Canada.
And we have Juan back on the line as well.
No worries.
Connect from my phone. My laptop just died on me somehow, so sorry.
But we'll have to write a complaint to the Canadian government about that. That's unacceptable.
I'd like to mention something there. Juan Pablo has excellent contacts. Juan Pablo, we were talking a little bit about the food and beverage industry and the potential opportunities for Atlantic Canadian companies in that market. And if you want to get introductions, if you want to get that initial legwork, I couldn't recommend anybody better than Juan Pablo in that. He's been a strong supporter of our team and of Canadian companies, and I would strongly recommend that you talk to him.
Thank you, Arturo. And yes, I mean, the reason of that is basically just geographically. I think we kind of alluded, or maybe the part that I missed that Arturo was mentioning was that most of the buyers come to Miami because, the islands basically produce little in their own markets. So, they come to Miami to shop for everything and anything. So, there's several companies here that, we have recommended to Arturo and to some of ACOA's clients that are selling into the region, that are distributors. Jeff was mentioning the company that he works with for the batteries. So that is just, one of many that do the same for different segments and different sectors. So, the infrastructure is here. It's just a matter of, making the right connection and, starting to work from there.
And Joyce has a question, and I think you covered part of this, Juan Pablo. What are some of the distributors and how does one find them for one's industry? And I'll get you to speak to that briefly, but Joyce, I would say first thing you do is email Juan Pablo. And say what your industry is, what you're selling, and start that conversation. Juan, did you want to add anything to what we said?
No, and that's a great point. It really depends on the industry. We're essentially happy to look at the particular sector that your client is looking at. So we can help with that. So just let us know, the industry and the sector, and most likely we have a contact in that particular industry that we can connect you with.
I guess apart from like a specific kind of response to that, but if somebody is on the line and they're thinking like, what is the breadth of industries that are represented by buyers, or I'm sorry, by distributors and wholesalers? Like, there's somebody, they're saying, well, I'm in the health and beauty industry. Is that a common area that there would be distributors and wholesalers? Clearly food, maybe building supplies. How broad is this? Are you able to kind of give us some idea?
Sure. Well, obviously the largest ones I will say are, food and beverage, building supplies, technology. But as we mentioned, the islands, have little production, so they have to buy everything from abroad. So even if there's just one or two distributors for that specific niche that you're looking at, most likely there's one company here in Florida that is covering that particular commodity or product, if you will. So, whether we know them, that's a different story, but we can certainly help you identify them through internal research that we often do when it's a really specific ask.
And if I could be so bold, because I think we're almost out of time, when you're approaching a trade commissioner like Juan Pablo and the team in Miami, the more specific you can be, the better it is. So who do you usually sell to? Who is your normal end user? What your product is? Help them help you better, if that makes sense. And
I can make it simpler. You can come in the trade mission and we'll develop a beautiful company profile for you. That company profile is private, but we'll share it with whoever is relevant. And that shows, and I'm not saying you have to do this, but it's a very efficient, very well leveraged way to dip your toes into the markets and try to see if that makes sense. It's also a show of commitment to the trade commissioners and their team. Thank you.
On that note, I think, Craig, I think we're a few minutes over, so I'm going to just kind of close the session.
Can I just we did put a question to Juan Pablo and we lost him. And it really, I think there's a lot of people kind of was wondering, I thought it was a great, if Juan Pablo, if you could just give us a minute or two, what are the typical industries that you see Canadian companies engaged in Florida, from that whole perspective as a gateway?
Sure. And I was talking to myself at that point because I thought I was still on, but basically, anything high-tech goods, medical instruments, medical tests, anything medical that it's lacking in the region, agri-food, of course, technology, and I will say those take the bulk of what we see from the Canadian companies here. Obviously, there's more, but it's everything and anything. But those are the ones that we see the most activity from.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Sorry, Tanya, back to you.
Okay, great. Thanks, Juan Pablo. And thank you, everybody. Thanks to the Trade Commissioner Service out of Miami, to Jeff, to Hassam, who had to unfortunately leave early, and to all of you for your interest. Really appreciate it. If you want additional info, we are here to help. We're your team on the ground, Paula, Arturo, Craig, and I, happy to answer any questions that you might have. And just wanted to say that registration for the trade mission will open after this session. You'll probably be sent the information directly into your email. We are taking 10 delegates in total. So if you have an interest, please indicate, either give us a call or fill out the registration information, and Paula and or Arturo will be in touch with you to further discuss. And I just want to add, I think, to the point that being on a trade mission is really about having that support and really the qualified meetings with potential buyers that you may not be able to get on your own. So the support that you receive from Beyond Ventures and MNC Latin Consulting is tremendous, and certainly not only just from a point of matchmaking, but also the support they give to you before you enter into those meetings. So hope that we will see some of you on the mission, and if there's anything else, please, we know that Florida and Miami is really a great entry point for new exporters, experienced exporters, and those who want to sell into the Caribbean and Latin America. So please, if you need any more information, please reach out. Craig, anything else to sign off on?
Thank you, everybody.
Okay.
I want to
Thank you
make
so much.
Tanya, just to echo what you were saying, it makes a whole lot difference if you're coming into a new market within a mission that by yourself. So I definitely recommend joining the mission, because from the local point of view, you get more visibility and more, I guess, more support by joining a group than coming by yourself. So that's really key and really important.
Thank you, Juan Pablo. Thank you so much. And thank you to everybody. Appreciate it. And oh, one more thing. We do have another session on Jamaica on Thursday from 1 o'clock. So if you haven't registered or you're interested, please join us, and we'll see you then. Bye for now.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.